Welcome to Winternomics.eth. Your stream will begin shortly. Loading in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get ready to jam. Welcome to Winternomics.eth. Your stream will begin shortly. Loading in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get ready to jam. Welcome to Winternomics.eth. Your stream will begin shortly. Loading in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get ready to jam. Welcome to Winternomics TV. Your stream will begin shortly.
And we are live. Welcome back to Kash Cycle 5. Welcome to the Metaverse. This is your host, Kazonomics. It's been a while since you've seen us. We've got some returning guest, Ross Gerber. We're going to introduce our guys next, right in the next scene. We're going to be discussing today companies, technologies, where we are today. Is this the precursor of Ready Player One? What is the Metaverse? What is Facebook's role in jumping into this? What's NVIDIA doing? And who are the players, and what can we expect seeing this new world roll out? So without further ado, let me get you guys over to our panel.
Howdy.
And joining us today, we have returning special guest Ross Gerber from Gerber Kawasaki Asset Management. Thanks for coming back to us. Always appreciate having you on all of our specials. We have his doppelganger, Ross Berger, on the top left. He is a coder. He actually studied, in programming AI and really crazy shit like that. He can add some crazy insights into this world. And on the bottom left, we have DCLBlogger. Some of you might know. He's the developer of Metakey. He's been in this space for quite some time. He's going to share some insights on NFTs, what Metakey is. And in the bottom right, we have Flux, or AbovetheBias. He's an investor in the crypto space and works with many of the teams like Adam, and has some definite insights to share with us in discussing the Metaverse. So, without further ado, Matt, I'd like you to take it and tell us broadly, for the people who aren't as well versed, what is the Metaverse?
Awesome. Well, first of all, it's a total pleasure to be here and share the stage with you guys. Some new faces, so totally happy to network with you guys even after the show. But awesome. So for me, guys, I started in 2017. I got into crypto and I didn't know what I was doing. Right? I saw this market going up and down, and I was like, "Whoa, what's going on over here?" Threw some money at it, made some money, lost some money. But what really got my attention was in 2018, January, when this sort of this thing called Decentralized popped up. And for me, it was just another token. But within the Discord, when I joined it, there was a bunch of people buying and selling virtual land, right? So people were buying and selling virtual land. And then I participated and I realized what NFTs were. There were things like virtual land and art and all these sort of things. And for me, the Metaverse, and I remember in 2018 or 2019, somewhere along there, Ready Player One came out. And it sort of all hit me, right? I didn't come from the background of reading books. I think some people read the early books of Snow Crash, etc. Is there an echo?
I got it.
Is there
Go
an
ahead.
echo on my?
I think you're good on my end. Yep.
Okay. So the Ready Player One came about, and then it all hit me what I was doing at the time, where I was buying virtual land. That was, it was on blockchain when we were buying virtual art, which was also on blockchain. And suddenly, not only can you take your identity, which is your visual self, which projects like Second Life, etc., were experimenting with, and high fidelity with the aspect of taking your VR glasses, putting your VR glasses on and taking your identity there. Not only can you take your identity, but you can now also take your assets with your identity of value. So now that your assets, whether it be digital art or the land or even the name on your head, you can own it as an NFT. And suddenly this whole concept of connecting the metaverse start to become more of a realization. So to me, the metaverse means connecting other projects and platforms and people and communities and society in a way that represents and replicates the real world, and doing it as in a way that gets more and more immersive over time. It's a work in progress. It's always going to be a work in progress. So yeah, the mix of VR and AR and the mix of all these technologies coming to build the true Web 3.0. So to me, the metaverse is just this awesome explosion of tech, which visually, in a different space, parallel to the real world, will be experiencing things that we can't experience in the real world.
Berger, what do you think? What do you have to share on that?
Yeah. So I like that you mentioned Second Life, because that's actually where it first got my start, both coding for money and also with AI. But I think the big thing that we need to take into account is like, where were we in the 90s with the internet versus where we are now with the internet and mobile phones and what it's become. I think what the metaverse is really going to be is just another more immersive version of what we have already. It's like, how much of our time do we spend digitally now? It's probably like 70-80%, depending on how old you are. And like, so when we talk about the metaverse, we're talking about virtual reality, we're talking about augmented reality, and these things are going to be both us going into a digital world where we feel like we're a part of it, but also the digital world coming into the real world and having that context awareness between the two. So like NFTs, you'll have them in the digital world, but you'll also have them here physically in front of you, and you can see them and interact with them while you're walking around in person.
So you're talking like, kind of like where Nike's going into Roblox and kind of creating a digital landscape, but having probably real world sneakers that give you special perks and inside the virtual world, right?
Yeah, not just that though. Like, if I have augmented reality glasses, I can be wearing those digital shoes on my physical person, and if someone else has augmented reality glasses, they can see those on me as I'm walking around.
Yeah, I think the point of like mixing what's real and what's digital is what bridges the metaverse versus what we had before. And I was on the Nike Roblox thing yesterday because I told my kids, hey, there's this Nike thing, you guys, like, I wanted to see it. And it took them like 2 minutes to find it, which is the sort of genius of Roblox. And next thing you know, because my kids have created these characters. So to me, the metaverse is gaming, and it's been around for a long time in games like Second Life, in Grand Theft Auto. I play Warzone, and we always joke with my friends on Warzone, like, this is our metaverse. Like, we prefer to kill people and, like, blow stuff up. But we all choose to live this life. But it's always been like, why doesn't it mix together? Why aren't the things that like, why isn't the hamburger place in Warzone a McDonald's? Or why can't I buy things in the metaverse and have them shipped to my house? Like, the shoes is a perfect example from Nike of the forethought of like, oh, I can buy a pair of shoes in the metaverse and actually get them in real life and wear them in the metaverse and in real life on my character. And kids completely identify themselves with their characters on Roblox now. So to me, that's the next Facebook. Like that, my kids are not going to be on Facebook or Instagram, and I will absolutely make sure that will happen. But they are on Roblox, and it's a platform that has the foresight to grow with children. And I think that's the future, and that's the metaverse.
What do you think of Facebook's attempt to grab the brand Meta and, the fact that they do have the 2.8 billion person enclosed system to roll it out to, plus they have the VR hardware, which is key, right? The VR hardware is key to getting people in there. Not that old people
do you use Oculus? Do you have you used Oculus a lot? Because
I'm only used the HTC for VR, but I've used the Oculus. It's nice.
Here's my Oculus stuff. It's junk. It's just a bunch of junk. This thing is garbage. They're all garbage. I have every one. Here it is. It ends up here. I have kids. They don't even care about it for the least. It's the least thing they care about. That's all.
So putting the headset on is a no-go, right? We need something much more sleek that's going to go on someone's face that's not so cumbersome.
This thing, come on. This is not the metaverse. This is a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
I think where we're at is, if you remember when the iPhones first came out, like the only apps were like, you could have a beer and then pour it, and then you could have like a little soundboard. So that's where we're at in terms of apps for the metaverse right now. We're still in the pour beer out of the accelerometer and be like, wow, that's fun for 5 minutes. But I think we've got a lot more coming. It's like trying to predict what the internet would be.
Oh, totally.
20 years ago, we couldn't.
That's what I'm saying. In 5 years, this conversation will be like, wow, they're talking about this crazy stuff now, but we did this with Bitcoin 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I didn't believe any of it at the time. And you guys convinced me, really, not you guys, but another group of Kaz's friends. And I'm grateful. I'm really grateful. But I was already into the metaverse because I'm a gamer. And so, like, to me, living in a digital alternative reality happened when SOCOM came out and the internet. What you said, Russ, is absolutely true. It's absolutely parallel with the power of the internet to bring streaming and to connect us in a way where there's this enormous amount of digital information transferring. Like the new Battlefield is 128 players and it's beautiful. I don't know if you've seen it.
Nice.
Like
Nice.
the game isn't great, it's good, but the technology is unbelievable. Yeah. Like just the ray tracing, and we're big investors in NVIDIA, and like the way. So the next level is the immersiveness of like the third dimension, the AR, VR, where it's not a bulky headset.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we get there with glass,
I find it really interesting that all of us have sort of separate, a little bit different sort of tweaks or descriptions of what the metaverse can be or is. Like for me, I'm learning what you guys are saying, Ross, on your sort of connection of the digi-physical world, and there's so much of that going on at the moment where there's experiments where
like art.
Yeah, so like you purchase your shoes, which is a wearable in Decentralized and CryptoVoxel, etc., but it's also a physical that you get. And what people at MetaFactory are doing as well is you can get a jacket that actually has an Ethereum address or an address built into it. So suddenly you can use the jacket, which has an RFID chip, to kind of gate people coming into physical spaces. So there's like many experiments coming on. Yeah,
it's for counterfeiting. Who was tweeting about that today? Somebody big was tweeting about, it was Ackman, about this company where it's like I buy a purse, for $5,000 and I get an NFT. That's my digital certificate that it's authentic. And then when you sell it now, it's really authentic versus like, oh, it's authentic. Trust me, it's on one of these resale, real. You know what I mean? Where they pay humans to check, like think about the utility of that. That's pretty cool.
Is it kind of surprising that like Gucci and Nike are already, like billion-dollar corporations like that, are already settling on developing metaverse when crypto took so long before you saw anybody big really actually step into the space?
Because it's easy and it's an extension of what already exists.
Makes sense.
And I think a lot of these big companies have known about NFTs for a while. I remember in 2017 I was working on a project and we were talking to Sotheby's about NFTs 4 years ago
for collectibles and everything. Yeah,
so
for real
they've known about it. It's just a matter of their on-ramp onto it has finally become accessible.
Well, when you think about blockchain technology and its ability to track actual ownership, which is really one of the most efficient elements of blockchain, like that's a million different potential use cases.
Mm-hmm. And I think we've barely struck the surface of what those can be.
Well, like I'll give you an example for like insurance. Like I have all this art, like I collect like rock and roll memorabilia. And so it's like I own these things and they send you pieces of paper that's like, this is an authentic Jimi Hendrix, whatever. And it's like a piece of paper signed, like the dude's like, I got it on this day. That's literally how they prove ownership. And with real art, they like have a manifest like on the back kind of where it's like this person owned it, and you have to like go through this, but it's a piece of paper basically. And that's how stocks were when I started. It was all just like physical paper ownership, and now it's all digital. There's no paper at all. Like, and so like when you think about the metaverse is this crossover of what's real and what's digital and who owns what in this space. Because what you said, Matt, right off the start was that you got into buying digital land, for example, which to me seems like, what the fuck is that? But it probably makes sense. I'm not saying it's dumb because I don't know, but if you think about, there's this digital space that will exist in, we're gonna have this. Now I have this personally on Call of Duty because that's the digital space that I play in when I have my digital time. But I like the real world a lot, like I'm I'm old, like I'm Gen X. I don't live 80% of my life in front of a computer or phone, but I also do for a good portion of my life too. So the more immersive, the more I get out of it, the better. And, I'll give you an example is in music. As you can tell, I'm very involved with music. And when you think about NFTs for concert tickets or concert posters or remembering this event, then you think about the digitization and being able to consume and enjoy music digitally. Then you have concerts in Roblox or in Fortnite or wherever where 30 million kids are watching, like Travis Barker or whatever. And you're like, for entertainment, it's a game changer too. So where does it end? We don't know.
But for business, I mean, even in music, one of the things I talked about in the show on Twitch was that artists would have the chance to actually share royalties with their fans if their fans bought NFTs of like limited albums and could share in revenues of that. I think Tory Lanez did something like that. I'm not sure if he shares revenues,
yeah,
but
absolutely,
that's huge.
Well, I bought a Doors poster. It was an original poster from a very famous artist. There were very famous artists that painted these posters in the 60s and stuff. And you can tell because if you have 50s posters, then you look at the 60s, they got a lot better. And it's like a famous artist. And you're like, this guy gets nothing for the fact these things trade at $2,000 a piece, and he probably sold them for like 50 cents. You know what I mean? And so for artists, this opportunity, especially physical artists, it's about taking the physical art, which I think that guy Beeple or whatever his name is actually now made physical art and is selling it, and he's crossing over because he's truly an artist. So the fact that people paid that much for digital art isn't that crazy because he's truly considered an artist, right? And so that's where he crossed over that idea of digital art can be considered art.
I don't think we want to make a distinction that an artist has to produce physical art to be considered an artist either. That's
right. That's what I'm saying. But he proved you didn't have to, and now he's crossing over the other side.
Right on. Hey, Flux, I want to ask you above the bias. I want to get you in here. So, with digital ownership and all these different worlds that are trying to be developed, with NVIDIA trying to make their own world, with Facebook trying to make their own world, do you see something that allows for interoperability between different worlds for like people to be able to have their NFT artwork, their real life shoes represented in each world and let the worlds talk to each other? Or do you think it might be something like Microsoft and Sony fighting with each other to say having exclusivity and trying to kill the other one by saying come to my world versus playing Microsoft versus Sony? Do you think Facebook and NVIDIA might do shit like this where they try to like basically control the market the market space they have and kill anybody else's version of a metaverse?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I just want to say one point though on what Ross said that I thought was also interesting. Was I don't know if you guys have heard Quentin Tarantino, like obviously everyone knows Pulp Fiction. They did some really cool thing. I think he was trying to release unreleased clips as NFTs. Like that's super cool, right? That's like some legacy artist or producer or director doing, again, bridging the world between of unreleased stuff that even I feel like people of all ages would actually value that, right? Like
it was an NFT of the script or something like that. It was like a page of the script, and he got sued immediately by the Pulp Fiction producer.
Yeah.
And it shows you exactly what you're saying is true, that there's tons of value in that, and they sued so fast. It's like, really, and so you're absolutely right with this example.
Yep. I think, I'm like on Kaz's point. I think interoperability is definitely a big question right now. I mean, I'm sure Maddie can agree on this. There's so many different ecosystems that he's going into. Like even today, you see the landscape, like within pure art. We all know about OpenSea, and they kind of have, I would say, hegemony right now in terms of the biggest traction, take an obnoxious amount of fees, right? And it's kind of like ETH and Polygon right now. And I think with art as well, I think there's like Tezos. But like all these ecosystems, they're kind of having to make their own kind of design considerations. Like I'm sure you guys all heard about NBA Top Shot. They have their own walled garden. I think if Facebook does their own ecosystem, I would be surprised if they did interoperable. I feel like they would want to control everything. Like I think Facebook always likes to be in control. So I do think of that kind. I feel like it could kind of question the economy that we have today. Like even though we're seeing art being produced with different artists on different ecosystems, to answer your question, there is no straight up interoperable approach. I don't think we're there yet. So the UX or the user experience is pretty crappy on that part for the average user. But what I do like is that all these different entities, they're doing their own types of business development. They're focusing on different target demographics and they're bringing their own type of users in. I think Top Shop did a phenomenal job of like getting the average person who doesn't really give a crap about blockchain or anything. They just like basketball and they know that they can use their credit card and get in, and they did it extremely well. And I don't know if users today, I don't think we're at the maturity level where people are even thinking about the interoperable aspect of, can I go from this place to this place to this place? But I do think at some point people will ask those questions as people get more immersed in it. And I honestly don't think there's solutions today for that to happen at the scale of what you would want.
There are definitely experiments though, like people do intend to, I think at like the sort of ground, sort of base roots level, like the original NFT crowd or even the blockchain crowd, they want to connect with other projects. They understand interoperability. They understand the fact that you can use the cryptocurrency in my project, and then you can potentially integrate that in another game. You can do the same thing with an NFT. You can take it in one game. It could be a sword. You can take it to another game. It could be a shield. It could be a 5% stat boost in game 3. Completely made by completely different designers and developers, but they all sit on blockchain because they're all on the same database. They can speak to each other, and I think it's going to come down to is these sort of centralized big bodies like Facebook, etc., that will try their best to build and sort of own that user base and have their own sort of ecosystems. But there's a mass power emerging that's sort of decentralized, that are a culmination of multiple people that are building amazing products, and at some point integrating and collectively becoming stronger. Like, I can connect my project with another project with 10,000 users. I can integrate his NFTs. He can integrate my NFTs. I can give value to his users. He can do the same for mine. And we can have this massive ecosystem where you are using my sword in 10 to 20, 30 different games. So I think that's way more powerful long-term. I can't see a future where Facebook's going to stay relevant for more than 10 years or stay dominant. I don't think they can pivot their sort of branding and their image.
Man, tell us a little bit about what Metakey is, your product.
Yeah, awesome. I'd love to. So about 8 months ago, I founded a product called the Metakey. And the idea and the premise of it is to have a hyper interoperable product or an NFT where I'm not even building an in-house product. We're just selling Metakeys, and I'm knocking on the doors of every Web3 project and saying, hey, why don't we do an integration where Metakey owners can have a special room that they can access in this virtual world? Or, these games in DCL that you've already built, how about we build a 2% stat boost for Metakeys on Fridays?
So it's kind of like you're building a standard. You're like building kind of like a standard that all people could use.
Like a gate pass.
Sort of, but I'm selling Metakeys. So currently there's 10,000 Metakeys out there, and anyone's open to integrate those Metakeys as they see fit within their project.
It makes it like a gate key to different metaverses. If enough people join into that, it makes it a gate pass.
So I'll give you an example of how it was used. So Decentralized did a massive music festival, and they had Paris Hilton and all these other people come in and do their music stuff. And what we did was there was a VIP room, and you could only enter that room if you're on MetaMask, and in that MetaMask you signed in and it had a Metakey. And in that VIP room, we did interviews with the artists backstage. So it's kind of like a backstage pass. But that's not the only thing the Metakey does. It integrates into many other games. We're doing an integration with Habbo Hotel. We're talking to big time studios. We're doing something all across everyone. And suddenly, honestly, it's just an experiment. And it's an experiment on how many use cases can you fit into a single NFT. That $500 that you spent on this, you get courses. So we've got like this course database called Metacademy, where the users can generate sort of, their own sort of set courses that you can only access that database if you have a Metakey. So it's kind of like all these products being built and giving access to Metakey owners. And it's just an experiment. Anyone else can build the same product. We are open to integrate another project with us. But for me, it's kind of like, yes, the metaverse will come to exist, and yes, it will get more immersive. But what's going to take it next level is projects speaking to each other and playing with what blockchain tech can do. It can just do so much.
There was a chat room when I was in college called Worlds Chat. Do any of you know what that is? Ross, you might. Worlds Chat was a 3-dimensional avatar-based chat where you were represented by a 3-dimensional avatar moving around the world, and you could meet people and talk to people. PlayStation Home tried to do it again, which kind of failed because it was confined to PlayStation. But that to me is like where the metaverse is kind of going. Like that was the very, very beta precursor to Ready Player One. And connecting people is what I think Metaverse is going to be about, and productivity in the workspace. We talked about this, Ross, many years ago, that we would likely see VR workspaces where I could pass a desktop over to my partner working across the country, and we could all be in a virtual room set together to have businesses that were global, like truly global, while we were decentralized. And that would be really important for us to see that happen, because then you would start to see us generate economies within the virtual world that have real world effects. I think that's kind of where this is going to go.
Yeah, I think Microsoft's like moving to that quickly with sort of Teams, and like the way Zoom has kind of started that process of like, okay, we're now connected and we can really efficiently communicate. But now, can we do it in a virtual world? And that's where it gets pretty interesting. But the point relative to the different people trying to control the meta space and their lack of desire to create a unified system, which ultimately hurts the ultimate development of the meta space, will definitely be an issue. And it's always been one. And that's where Bitcoin was founded, started with the idea of moving a virtual hammer from one game to another. And they were like, no, we don't want that, because Activision wants to control all the commerce on its platform, or Xbox wants to control the commerce on their platform. And so people were like, well, we have to create a like sort of a meta dollar, which ended up being a Bitcoin. And in really 12 or 13 years, the massive adoption, development, and growth of virtual currency is unbelievable. So when you extrapolate out that to this metaverse concept, the thing that would hasten its expansion the quickest is a dominant player with an open source that allows for all these small platforms that will fail if they can't scale. Because to get a real market, you need participants. That's why the stock market works. And without a lot of participants, you can't get transparency in pricing, and you can't get liquidity in markets. And if there isn't liquidity in the markets, you can say something's worth something until somebody actually starts selling. You know what I mean? And that's like penny stocks and stuff, or like Dogecoin, when everybody's like, oh, it's this or that. And somebody really starts selling it, it goes right down, and you're like, it's not that liquid really. And so Facebook definitely wants to be that company, because they're the least relevant company in the future, and they know it. And so they pivoted hard, and fast into an area that they're not that good at. And I know they're not that good at, because I've been using this Oculus piece of crap for years. It actually, the truth is, I bought a Dell computer NVIDIA card to try the first Oculus with one Bitcoin back in the day for $750.
Nice.
What a bad investment, Ross.
Thank you. You want me to go get the computer? I'll smash it during the show. A $58,000 computer with an NVIDIA chip from 2014, right? But awesome. I could buy it with the Bitcoin, and it made me believe. And so when you think about the metaverse, I think a lot of people in traditional worlds, in the real world, have a hard time understanding living in a digital space, because they aren't gamers. And I think when you think about The Matrix or Ready Player One, where you have movies that visualize these worlds in a way that people can understand, it's much more understandable. But especially being my age, we are the bridge between like the beginning of the digital era and like the end of the non-digital era. And so the lifestyle of a 25 or 30-year-old today, and the way they interact with digital things in their life and their phone, is just incomprehensible to my mom, for example, and it's not, and she uses her phone, and I mean, she screws this phone up in ways that nobody could do, but like, I'm still amazed at how much time people spend in their phones and in social media. So think about the upside for society taking that power away from Zuckerberg and how he's manipulated society in such a negative way, and now creating an open world of positivity where other people control the world of social media in a way that might actually be positive for society.
Well, you know, you have to
what about that idea?
You have to crowbar social media out of his cold dead hands. You said before we started the show, you were really liking what you saw the Winklevoss were doing. So I wanted you to talk about what it was you saw they were doing. I'm going to talk about what I saw was going on with Gemini that I wanted to share in this show also. But first, I want you to go ahead and tell me what you saw.
So I think it was the beginning of this year I decided to just go all in. You know, we should be buying Bitcoin and Ethereum for clients. And what was happening was people were pitching us these programs that were like, our clients didn't actually own the Bitcoin. It was like managed, it was like ETFs of Bitcoin kind of thing. And to me, there's no utility in that. And so we decided to partner with Gemini and do this the right way, but build it how we manage money. And Gemini was totally open to open up the API. Let's build together a managed platform for advisors to help people into the metaverse. At the time, we were just worried about Bitcoin and Ethereum because that was hard enough. We're still working literally every day building this next gen metaverse financial account that you'll have. So Gemini has this vision and we're buying it. And this is what we were talking about earlier, that like right now, let's say I manage like 2.2 billion and it's this circle of stocks mostly and some bonds and whatever. And then we have now, I don't know, 10 million in crypto that we've taken in the last couple months. Okay. This is growing and more money is shifting now from traditional finance into cryptocurrencies and digital assets. Okay. So this pie right now is, let's say, 0.1% of financial assets. So when you think about this pie, it's only going to continue to open over time. Okay. Firms like Coinbase and Gemini understand and want to be this gateway that Maddie's talking about. They want to be this market for digital assets. And that's the way Tyler and the Winklevoss twins think about Gemini. They started with Bitcoin, but they get NFTs, they get the marketplace for digital assets, and they get security, which is why we partnered with them and not Coinbase, which doesn't care or cares less. So what's next is, as we talk about metaverse assets, we're as a firm the only one in America, maybe the world, prepared to manage those assets for clients. And that's the way I look at finance today. That over the rest of my career, which will hopefully be 25 years, God willing, because I will stop at 75. But for the next 25 years, this pie will just grow and grow and grow. And what I think is it will be 50-50 when I retire.
Okay, so I get the side of it that you're talking about, and right, that, you know, the Winklevoss are creating a conduit for the average person to walk into crypto. Coinbase is
and the digital metaverse of assets.
So, and this is one thing, like, you know, it's easy to sneak something in when people don't have just a topical idea of what the fuck those guys are doing. So with the bit license, right, like in New York, you can't use something like Kraken Exchange to get crypto assets, but you can use Coinbase and you can use Gemini. And something that we can discover, my accountant decided to stick some capital over in Gemini because of the really high interest rates on the Gemini dollar. And so I was like, I decided to follow him and stick some stuff over with him and just kind of see, you know, what it was. And, you know, I've been in crypto a long fucking time. And the Winklevoss, being who they are, talking about that they want to save crypto from, you know, save the metaverse from Zuckerberg because he's a charlatan and all that. It's pretty amazing the deceptive thing they're doing, because you've seen Mark Cuban's already come in with something called Voyager. And this is really the same thing. So for all of you who don't understand what is actually going inside Gemini, when you normally stake a coin on POS, you normally get paid, you know, rewards in terms of the coin. Right? So you stake ETH, you get ETH, you stake Atom, you get Atom. Well, until you put any money over on Gemini, you might not realize it, But the bit license locks out everybody who actually pays you in terms of coin. And so what Gemini does, it pays you those fantastic yields to attract people to put money over there, and they pay you US dollars. So what Gemini is actually doing is financing the acquisition of your staked coins. That's completely different than what anybody actually realizes. And like, for a 55-year-old like grandma walking onto that exchange, she might never even know she was ever supposed to be compensated in coin. As crypto inflates...
Oh, you said 55-year-old grandma? Okay. Grandmas are not 55.
What are you talking about? I know some 55-year-old grandmas, but I'm saying the bottom line is, for the average person who doesn't know crypto...
I got to step in there, Kaz. You can continue. The grandmas are like 75.
Okay, so my accountant is 55 and he's a grandpa. So I'm legit. This guy walks in there.
I'm going to have to sign off of you. If you say it again.
You're not up there yet. You're safe. But the point of the matter...
51 in a couple months.
Well, Jesus Christ.
My kid's 9.
It's called Just for Men, motherfucker. Use it.
He hasn't even seen... He doesn't even know what the difference between mama and daddy. He knows there's a difference. But he doesn't know. Okay, he's 9. So watch out.
Grandpa Gerber. All right, so this is great that you're having this technology call, because this call is for you. The reality is that for the average person who doesn't know crypto, what Voyager and Gemini are doing, and however the hell they got the bit license to make it so that they're the only party in town, they are financing the acquisition of coins, and that is a long-term bet on the inflation of crypto, because you wouldn't set up such an operation unless you thought Ether and these things were going to be fantastically fucking higher. The reality is, though, most people have no fucking idea what this is, and the guys who allow you to get your state coins are being forced out, and if bit licenses to become the framework of the entire United States, this is amounts to coinfiscation. I mean, highway robbery for the major market coming in the door, not even realizing that these operations are actually them financing an infrastructure to acquire the staked reward coins. So I think that's something I wanted to put out there, because nobody fucking fully knows it, and especially grandparents around the world like Gerber need to be informed before they put their fucking inheritance over on that exchange and get jacked.
So Kaz, can I just jump in? So just to clarify, what they're doing is that they're paying out in fiat, but they're keeping the yield.
Right. So
like you said.
Right. The opposite of what you normally see. Like if you put your Ether down, you can't pull it out until Ether 2 rolls out. They'll stake it, let you pull it out. So like, oh, my Ether is liquid. No, they're doing that, and they're using you to finance the acquisition of the stake coins you should get. So you can stake.
So they're keeping the ETH.
Right. So you can stake Atom. You can stake everything at the same interest rates that you see. The same yields, but you'll be paid dollars, and you won't have any, if you don't even know you're supposed to get
it's
coins.
Interesting you brought that up, because
pretty big risk though, right?
That's kind of what the SEC's kind of like starting to work on, is like let's say you take an exchange like Kraken, like money comes in. Now we know how it works at Gemini, like when money comes in, and we know when there's mistakes and how they're fixed and what goes on. And so and that's not just there. That's at every firm we deal with from wherever. So essentially, it becomes more like a centralized system that they're supposedly not supposed to be. And so what's happening is, are there segregated funds at all these firms for the assets people are staking? And I think that's the point you're making, is that there isn't. And if there isn't, then it's very, very profitable for these firms as long as things go up. But if they go down, it's bad.
And so that is one of the sentiment things you get to read on. And if Cuban's greedy ass is here and the Winklevoss are here, and they both have created this infrastructure to compensate people who are none the wiser with fiat for their state coins, they're both making a long-term bet on crypto being far, far higher to take that bet.
But we don't recommend people stake their coins either. We don't, and we don't think people should.
Why is that?
Well, I don't think the risk reward is there for exactly the reasons you're saying. So if they're going to pay you 8%, I mean, that's nothing.
I mean, that's in USD. That's in USD. But if you're getting paid 2% to
hold, but what the fuck is USD? That's my point. Is it really USD?
But they're paying you 2% on ETH. They're paying you 2.5% on Atom. So when you think about the annual return on these coins plus that's a super high yielding dividend paying stock.
I guess, but
I guess you're also betting on.
You don't know. There's no audit done by some third party to make sure all this stuff is legit. I'm not saying anybody's not legit. I'm just saying when the SEC comes to our broker dealer like LPL, Like, it's a nightmare because they go through everything. They've come to my office once and they went through everything. And that's good. That's good. They literally they're like, there's $37 wrong on this one account. You guys got overpaid. And I'm like, oh, they can have it back. You know,
But
like,
they don't have any jurisdiction to regulate you know, POS coins. These
not
things
right now.
they're not business
right now.
entities.
But see, like, that's what is going on at Coinbase with Brian Armstrong and the CEO and the SEC, is they're having this head to head right now. So this guy Gensler thinks he's like kind of smart and gets crypto, but I don't think he does. And so, like, there's this battle now as these firms have billions and billions of dollars of assets and these are securities. So this is something that is going to be an issue. So
Well,
if
these
a
coins,
digital
these coins,
asset has value, it's a security.
well,
And if
it's
a security,
not
it
securing
needs to be
anything.
regulated by the SEC. And that means Coinbase should be regulated by the SEC, the same as Schwab. So what I think happens next is Schwab buys a big Bitcoin exchange and the SEC starts regulating Bitcoin. That's next. Then market makers will trade Bitcoin. Then after that, Bitcoin ETFs, and then $5 trillion goes into Bitcoin.
Do you think after all that, so you think crypto needs more regulation, you think, from where we're at today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm dealing with Binance right now. So shady. So fucking shady, dude. These people have no checks and balances. Who do I complain to? You know, at Binance US won't let my Bitcoin go. Who will?
There's
So
no
I go on to
yeah.
Twitter and I harass CZ, whatever his name is. What country are you in? Why can't I get my Bitcoin and transfer them? Because everything's on the up and up. You have my identity. There's nothing shady except you won't let me get my Bitcoin. So now they email me finally after I have to harass them on Twitter. So that's like Coinbase in 2015, you know? So you can't expect something to be worth trillions of dollars and not have, and be legitimate and not have the government be involved.
So I have a question. I would give you like a counterpoint as well. I think definitely there are a lot of shitty brokerages. You know, there's a lot of, you see a lot of these derivative platforms. Yeah, I mean, exactly. I was just going to say, like, a lot of these derivative platforms back in the day, I mean, me and Kash can definitely attest to this, is like, you had all these shady exchanges that were literally trading against their customers, quite literally. And there was no data on it. And it was very sketchy, kind of Wild West. And I would say that it definitely exists today. But there's also the other side where regulation also hampers, right? Like, if you think about the whole ethos of crypto, right? A lot of these people are like young people, like people that are around, they kind of made it, right? They took the risk early on. Their lives have drastically been changed. And that's always been the ethos of crypto, is like, come in early. There's something for everybody. If you spend your time, you put in the work, you'll make it, right? It's a meme, but there is some kind of belief to it. So the aspect of regulation, which I'm sure you heard of it. There's like airdrops. Like, there's airdrops that were given to people that use certain platforms. And if you were based in the US, you were basically said that you cannot have them. And some of these airdrops for some people are worth like $75,000, which is a lot of money. And what is the reason? Like, the question that I have is, like, they say that due to regulatory reasons, you can't have these airdrops. So to me, I that's my question to you, I guess, Ross. Like, and that aspect, like, regulation kind of seems unfair, right? Like, it's now removing what do you get? How are you protecting your customers by not giving them an airdrop that they are supposed to get? $75,000.
So this is, your point is obviously a valid one. And so with that, so look at it this way. There's all great technologies are invented by young, spirited, crazy people, whether, you know, it was the computer chip in the 70s or whatever it was. You know, they were all doing acid and coming up with computer chips. And so, like, when you think about amazing tech breakthroughs and its life cycle, look at what's become of Apple from where it started. You know what I mean? Like, Woz and Jobs smoking weed and trying to make a computer work, and now it's a $2 trillion company. It's the most boring company on earth, which I own stock in. But Bitcoin has grown up, and unfortunately, part of life is it's less fun when it grows up and everybody got rich. So the people I know 7 years ago who were all in, who I thought were crazy are much richer than I am, and deservedly so, because of the risk reward that they were willing to take at the time that I certainly wasn't. I said that to Tyler Winklevoss. I go, I saw Bitcoin 7 years ago, but I was scared to death. You put all your money in it, you know? And it was a genius move. In hindsight, he's a multi-billionaire. So when you think about how do we make something work for everybody and safe, there's a positive, but there's a negative. And the negative you've aptly pointed out, which is kills innovation, it kills the fun, it kills opportunity. And I think there will be two worlds of crypto outside the United States and inside the United States. And unfortunately, I don't see another way if we want Bitcoin to be a $5 or $10 trillion asset. I don't see another way, because if governments don't buy in, like China, it's bad kind of for Bitcoin. And so there's a trade-off with that. So hopefully you hope that the people making rules are smart. But I can safely say that's not true.
You know that's not true. I mean,
I can safely say it's not true. So I'm not confused.
Gessler's a fucking agent of fucking Wall Street. I mean, that guy is talking about he's here to protect.
I mean, but it's also you're rich, but you're fucked. So you hire lawyers and you do things honestly, like I do at my firm, and you won't have problems. But unfortunately, there's bad actors in Bitcoin, and you all know it. And what they do is they hurt all of us that are honest, because the next exchange that goes down, and one will, okay, and people will lose money, there will be an outcry for regulation. So it's much better if the actors play right from the beginning. So I implore the Bitcoiners of the world to play right, because if we're going to go next level, it's going to have to prove that it's a system that sort of plays by the rules, even though we know it doesn't quite.
Matt, how do you think this plays into somebody like OpenSea that's kind of like, got assloads of money flowing through it and kind of like the Wild West right now?
Yeah, no idea. Regulations and the sort of legal aspect and the history of how that's kind of affected markets is not sort of my background, but I can't see it not having an effect. But a part of like this open world is sort of having the freedom to trade. So it's kind of like, how much do we regulate? How much of it will hamper growth? I was speaking to some people that were from exchanges, and they were saying how like there's an issue in terms of having enough content or NFTs on the platform to be able to trade, because they're a centralized exchange versus OpenSea, which everything sits in people's wallet, and so you can have a massive marketplace because you don't need to store it in a central location. There's all these challenges with the NFT sector in itself. And look, I don't really have much comments on the regulation part. I just know that
it's very similar to Bitcoin's developments challenges as well, actually.
Is the decentralized exchange that we've been dreaming of for all these years like finally like possible though? Because we've been hearing about that as a means to get around regulations, that we would just have wall-to-wall trading, and that's never really taken shape in a meaningful way. What do you think about that, Above the Bias? You got any thoughts on decentralized exchanges?
Yeah, I think so. Great points. I think in my head, I feel like Bitcoin's path to regulation and stuff, I see it as predetermined. I think it's inevitable at this point. I think they're playing games with the ETF and stuff. But when you see all the, I would say, DeFi stuff, and really how I would call it like a Pandora's box, and how big the design space there is, it's truly incredible how like big that space is. I actually think Bitcoin looks like child's play. Like it's just, digital gold, fixed asset. There's nothing really interesting. It's a matter of custody of funds, making sure no one loses money. As Ross said, there's a lot of institutional capital coming in. They care about custody. I think that's not really a problem. I do think that the way that, Gary Gensler and how they're kind of perceiving DeFi is very interesting. I think it's actually a lot of the founders that I've spoken to in the past few years, actually last year more specifically, they're now leaving America, and they're saying, hey, like, the way that they're going, like all this innovation that's coming out, they're literally in this past month, I've spoken to at least 10 founders, and they said they've been in America, like very smart kids, went to university, said, they're like, yeah, we're leaving, because the upside for us, why would we go in a place where we're not really welcome? And the opportunity for them, within crypto, like every year is like the upside for here, like a month here, the upside is exponential, right? So for them, I get it, right? They're literally going to Europe, Asia, and we're seeing innovation kind of flee. And I don't know if that's the best situation, because ideally, I feel like America has always been like this hotbed for innovation. So I think the beauty of crypto, and it could be a curse, feature or bug, it's to be determined by who is perceiving it. But because the kind of landscape is global, right? I can be some villager in, let's say, India, and I can deploy a smart contract, and Ross could be Mark Cuban, or Ross could just be touching and interacting with them. You'll get priced the same premium as anyone globally. That is like a new paradigm, right? Like traditionally, you'd see like Uber in America, maybe Ola in India, for example. They get priced differently to their specific markets. But in crypto, you deploy a smart contract, everyone is interacting with it, and you get priced globally. So it is now there's now no real incentive for people to actually stay within America because of this gray regulatory landscape. I'm talking specifically about DeFi.
And I would also argue that the American system is rapidly losing utility. So you have two forces working against the concepts of sovereignty itself. Like, think about the EU and what a disaster that is too. So maybe the not so United States that isn't quite working anymore, and what's happening with crypto and like globalization is exactly the point you're making, that there's no utility in being American anymore. Like, I've never been less excited to be an American than I have been over the last 10 years as it's gone down. I was very excited when Obama won long ago, but like, it's just gone this downhill path to now I believe I'm a global citizen, and that's the way I look at myself, even though I'm American. So it's like, what you're saying is a very interesting thought process, and countries that understand this might attract lots of people like Singapore or Puerto Rico, or or El Salvador with their Bitcoin city that I laugh about, but maybe it's genius.
Well, yeah, good luck in securing a city with no tax revenue for police force. But, one reason I asked about regulations was to kind of talk about that on the basis that America is trying to choke the life out of Bitcoin, figure out how to get their hands on everybody's money. And it stifles, innovation and growth in a place that is global, which is going to be about the path of least resistance. You put a blockade on America, everybody's influx goes everywhere else. And this is an opportunity to be taken from America if they're not careful with what they're doing. Like, there are people everywhere from Australia to South Asia that have a lot of smart people, a lot more smart people than America has already, as far as the coding base goes. So I thought that's something to think about. Like, you've got a bunch of like old farts trying to make regulations for a technology they don't understand. You see the way they talk about crypto, the way they talk about social media. And I can only imagine what kind of lame-ass, Johnny-come-lately regulations will show up in the NFT space, trying to figure out how to chase that down, how to chase down ownership rights, property rights and all that when it migrates into the virtual world. And I think America is so convoluted and has so much bureaucracy that it stands to be a good chance for somebody else to become home of innovation away from America.
Well, that's your point. Goes back to Cash Cycle 1, where I had a much greater belief in the American system when we were arguing about the need for something like Bitcoin. And since that point, it's gone straight down. And I think it's safe to say our society is in decline. And so, knowing this,
thanks to Zuckerberg,
that's why all this is getting so big.
Right on. So I think we're at a pretty lengthy point here. This is a really robust convo. I think we touched on a lot of good shit. I want to thank everybody for coming and joining us. I think this was a pretty awesome discussion for people that don't know much about the metaverse and what it was. I do want to thank all you guys for coming out here. Matt, thanks for coming out and discussing Metakey and your position on crypto and NFTs. AbovetheBias, appreciate you throwing some information on the space as well. And Berger. Ross, as always, a pleasure for coming out here. So this is the 6th year of doing Cash Cycle. I think this is a space much like crypto that has literally unlimited potential to expand. It can expand virtually unlimitedly. So it literally has unlimited expansion capabilities. And crypto and this metaverse space, are pretty much joined at the hip and will continue to grow together. I think the world is going to end up inside of a digital world as automation takes hold. you pretty much are going to need either to wipe the human population base because you don't need that labor anymore. You have to put them to work in a virtual space. So either we get rid of a bunch of sheep on the farm, or we put these sheep into something and stick some goggles on them and keep them busy. And I think the metaverse is that outlet that we can see. Ready Player One, I don't think is very far off of seeing a huge society becoming productive in the virtual verse versus the real world, and robotics and automation taking over a lot of the manual labor jobs in the space. That's kind of what we're looking at going forward. Some of the companies that you see out there that are settled in the space right now, like Roblox, Nvidia, are really just their early settlers. There will be companies like the Amazons that come later that will do some amazing things on the space on top of other people's platforms that I think we want to keep our eyes on. I don't know if Ross wants to share any gems that aren't so well known as Roblox and Nvidia that he's seen that are doing interesting things coming. But I definitely think this is a space across the next 7 to 15 years is going to be like a massive developmental arc. Go ahead, Ross.
No, I was going to say I agree. And you mentioned, you have the brains of running the metaverse, which is NVIDIA and Microsoft, which are, I do have an ETF, GK, on the New York Stock Exchange. And this is one of our themes, which really started as gaming as the new social media, which now has been coined the metaverse. And so we own NVIDIA and Microsoft already for many reasons, but also, so in my mind, Roblox is really the closest thing to the metaverse that exists today. And the way that they're moving is amazing. And then Unity is the heart of the metaverse. It's hard to build a lot of stuff without building on Unity. They really are sort of the main engine of the current metaverse. So I expect that to continue. And so we're seeing gaming companies like Take-Two with Grand Theft Auto sort of being a metaverse, or Electronic Arts with Battlefield. So there's many ways you can invest. That we are investing in these ways, but what we're also investing in are the Coinbases of the world, Square and PayPal, that are the commerce level of this new metaverse that's being built, especially companies like Square, where Jack really gets it. So from our perspective as investors, we're really looking at how do we invest in the ecosystem that will support the metaverse moving forward, not just how do we profit within the metaverse, which will be more focused around entertainment, gaming, work-related activities, and such. So there's a huge opportunity for somebody who has a decade viewpoint when you think about from an investment perspective where Bitcoin, the metaverse, gaming, this digital world will be in a decade. Most of us, I think, would have a hard time grasping what that would be if we really saw it today. It's going to be amazing. So it's a great opportunity.
So I think that's really important what Raj just said. A decade long viewpoint. When you really think about Bitcoin across a decade, or think about where we were on the internet a decade ago, or smartphones, that really is the kind of view that you have to see this thing really take shape beyond the very, very small traces of it that we see today. And speaking on investing in the guys who create and support the platforms is the pickaxe and shovel investing model. We talk about it a lot in Winternomics.eth. A lot of guys are in the marijuana space, but IIPR makes money in everybody, the winners and the losers, and that's kind of the guy.
That's another one of my top holdings, by the way.
IIPR, it's one of the ones we championed that guy for years, and it's just like gold miners. Every guy's gonna go up the hill looking to get rich on gold. The motherfucker who sells you a pickaxe and a shovel, the guy who sells you a pickaxe and a shovel, he gets paid every fucking time. And those are the guys you want to follow in this space, the guys who are going to support the infrastructure of the metaverse, that are going to get paid regardless of the projects that fail within the system. They're going to be guys who benefit no matter what. And so that's where Ross is talking, and I think that's a pretty important point he's made. So guys, I do want to thank you all for coming out. I think this has been a phenomenal conversation. Burger, AbovetheBias, Matt, Ross Gerber, and Burger. God damn it, you have to come with another handle there, Burger. You're killing me. But for everybody who came out, I want to thank you guys for coming out and checking out Cash Cycle 5. Welcome to the Metaverse. It's been a fun show. I hope you guys learned a lot. Make sure you come out and join us on our sister channel on Twitch, Winternomics.tv. Do a morning show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We've called pretty much every major market move you could ever dream of. Make sure you come check that out. Guys, take a look at Gerber Kawasaki's fund GK. That thing has it's a thematic fund. It it deals with many different themes from marijuana to Metaverse and others. It's been doing pretty good since he launched it. I do follow that thing, so very cool. Give you a plug. Take a look at Matt's site for Metakey. I think it's called themetakey.com. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So take a look at that. It's a very cool product he described. You know, it's not like an all-access pass across the Metaverse. Very cool concept that if enough people sign on to that, you may see Matt, take his rightful place in the Metaverse with a very innovative idea. So thanks for coming on to the show and helping us learn a little bit more about your product and some of your info. Burger, always a pleasure. We appreciate you, sir. And Flux, thanks for joining us, guys. Again, this is Cash Cycle 5. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. Until next time, peace out.
Welcome to Winternomics TV. Your stream will begin shortly. Loading in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get ready, bitches. Winternomics. Welcome. Welcome to Winternomics TV. Your stream will begin shortly. Loading in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get ready, bitches. Winternomics. Welcome.